Hello everyone, Amadeus here, and today with another video. It's been exactly 9 years since I arrived to Taiwan today. Thank you, Dosha, 谢谢, Gansha, arigato. 9 years, it's a long time. And from time to time, people come to me asking me questions. Hey, you haven't seen news? When are you going back home? Look, in Taiwan there are so many troubles. Like the neighbor. I went to the night market. I spent $100 and I only got 10 pieces of xian suji. Summers are too hot, winters are too cold, water is too wet, it is crazy. Or these days, the beetle nut beauties, they wear too many clothes. What's going on here in Taiwan? It is in fact a bit true. And also I talk to younger people and they come to me and they say, hey, you know how expensive our houses in Taiwan? I want to buy apartment, so expensive, prices skyrocket. The same time, our salaries are so low. The elders come to me and say, oh, you know, my son keeps pets at home, 2 dogs, 1 cat, and he doesn't want to have kids. He say kids too expensive, but I want to have grandchildren. What to do? Well, in fact, it sounds a bit difficult. Is Taiwan really that bad? To be honest, me as a foreigner, I also struggle here. Like the other day, I went hiking to the tallest mountain in Taiwan. The first thing that happened to me, check this out, check this out. All right. Jesus Maria. You okay? Yeah, the camera fell.
Yeah, that's, I realized.
And it's fucking broken.
Is it?
Yeah, it's fucking broken.
No, man.
Yeah, it's fucking broken. Fucking hell. That's how the day shouldn't start. That's how the day shouldn't fucking start. First thing in the morning. But, you know, to be honest, when the emotions go down, I went to fix my camera, I spent 4,000 NT, and that is a fraction of what I would pay abroad. So, is really Taiwan that bad? Well, for my 9 years anniversary here, I prepared you 9 stories from 9 different people about living in Taiwan. And after watching those stories, you tell me how it really is. So let's get started.
And I don't know where I am. It's this crazy country. And I meet these, I don't know, American-born Taiwanese. And they're like, hey dude, where are you from? And I'm like, oh my God, you speak English. Sister's boyfriend at the time, he wasn't very reliable with time, so it was like 2 hours went by. Finally shows up on his motorcycle, and I'm like, dude, I have a suitcase. So it didn't work. So then we found a taxi.
Okay.
Get in a taxi, and there's no phones to communicate, and so the taxi can't keep up with him on his motorcycle or scooter. So the taxi gets lost and ends up circling around. And then we end up he ends up getting scared, like stressed about me because he can't speak English and I can't speak Chinese, so he lets me off. He doesn't even charge me. He's just like wants to get out of this situation. Yeah. I get off the taxi again. My sister's boyfriend, he's still like, where did Cole go? I'm like, oh, can someone help me? And someone hands me one of those old, you know, Nokia flip phones with like a keyboard on it. And I'm like, okay, so I call. He's like, where are you, Cole? And he's like, Cole, take a taxi. And he told me the name of the street. So I get in another taxi and I get to the apartment. I get upstairs to the 19th floor and my sister opens the door and I just give her a big hug and I was literally in tears. Like, but I felt so relieved, man. So yeah, that was my welcome to Taiwan, day 1.
And Taipei, every time there was a typhoon, Taipei would flood so much that all of the first-story buildings, the restaurants, everything would have to close. And then we'd be wandering in the streets looking for food, and then people would come out of their apartments with things for us. Wow. They would see us wandering in the streets, you know, because the foreigners didn't know how to. We didn't have a kitchen. We were living in a hostel. Oh. So there was no way to prepare food, and so we would have to eat out most of the time. And then people were so kind. They would come and they're like, "You're hungry? Hungry?" And they would come. Wait, and they would bring us food. It was so sweet. Nice. Yeah, so many touching things.
One time I remember I was visiting Kaohsiung, and I basically just got the numbers under control then. And I stayed at this person's house, like an Airbnb. So I said, do you need a coffee? And they were like, yeah. So I quickly practiced like how many coffees, and I wanted 4 coffees. So I was like, 4杯咖啡. I was like, okay, I got it. I can remember this. So I go up to the coffee shop, and not the coffee shop, the Family Mart. Yeah. And I'm like, well, my tone must have gone up, you know. I'm like, 4杯咖啡. And she's like, oh, 10 coffees. She's like, 4杯吗? I was like, yeah. So like I'm waiting there for ages, you know, and she's like, and I'm like, someone's ordering a lot of coffees here. Like, who bought so many coffees? And then she's like, hey, 先生,你咖啡好了? And I was like, oh, yo. And then, but I felt so silly that I didn't want to tell her. And I was like, okay, thank you. And then I go back. And then when I got back to the house, she looked at me. She's like, you said something wrong.
I'd annoyed my wife. I did something wrong again.
He does that often.
I do that. So I thought, I know. I never buy her flowers because I think you shouldn't buy flowers too often, otherwise they don't mean anything, and you have to save them up for when you really need them.
They're getting underappreciated.
You've been very bad.
Yeah. So went into Henchang, bought some flowers. They seemed quite cheap, quite nice. Took them down to the bar where she owns. Kind of walked down there thinking, oh, she's going to love me for this, and presented these flowers, and I bought her the tomb sweeping flowers that you're supposed to. And you could see all of the people around her. So, some of them thought it was hilarious, other ones were kind of had their heads in their hands like that. And there's one guy who owns one of the other bars down there, because he knows I've been in Taiwan for a few years now.
Yeah.
He just came over to me and looked at me and went, Ian, come on, like this. And I was like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I tried to. Okay, so backstory here is that when I came to Taiwan, I loved milk tea. I've never had milk tea before, and I just found it like fascinating. I came to Taiwan, and someone said like, oh, they have this like Zhenju Naicha, and like a friend of mine just told me like Zhenju Naicha, and then you get this amazing drink. And this was before I actually learned it. I didn't see the characters, I didn't know anything. I just knew that if I make that sound, Zhenju Naicha, then I would get this amazing
drink you like.
But there was one problem. There was like some weird like bubbles in this Zhenju Naicha, which if you understand the Chinese part, it makes total sense.
Yeah,
but if you're a new arrived foreigner who just knows Zhenju Naicha, then you have no idea why they put like bubbles in it. So for like 6 months, when I started to like improve my Chinese, and I had like the courage to actually go and order for myself, I was like Zhenju Naicha, and then they always ask you the same questions, you know. They're like, oh,
You want sugar or tea?
exactly,
You want ice?
So then like, so you're practicing the responses back. So you know that the next answer is going to be like 无糖, 少冰, 谢谢, 袋子. So like, you know, you learn the answers in that order, because like 99% of the time they ask you in that order. So I went up and like 珍珠奶茶, 微糖, 少冰, 袋子, 谢谢. And I did it for like 6 months. And then my Chinese teacher, but the problem was that I didn't like the bubbles, right?
Okay.
So I would drink the milk tea, and then when there was only bubbles left, I would throw it out. For some reason, I talked about this in class. And then my teacher was like, Lucas, 大笨蛋. If you don't like the bubbles, 你不用整除. What's that word? So you can actually tell them 我不要整除.
Yeah.
That was the instructions I got from my teacher. So the next day, I go up to the same store and I say, 一杯珍珠奶茶不用珍珠，谢谢. Just for another 6 months, goes in order, 一杯珍珠奶茶不用珍珠，谢谢. And you know, the problem with Taiwanese people is that they're so polite.
Yeah, then they wanna like.
So like, even with this sentence, they're like, oh, 你的中文好标准哦，哇，你的中文好厉害. But obviously, there wasn't like logic.
So
issue
nobody
here.
fixed you.
Nobody
Who
fixed me.
that.
So nobody fixed me for like another 6 months until my Chinese improved a little bit and I recognized more characters. And I saw on a sign that they had 黑糖珍珠奶茶. So I was like, wow, they have like 黑糖珍珠奶茶. Okay, I go into the store and they're like, 我要一杯黑糖珍珠奶茶，不用珍珠，谢谢. And this clerk, he was like, 什么意思? But my Chinese was still like not good enough to have a proper conversation. So I was like, 微糖, 少冰. He's like, 等一下，什么意思? 袋子. And I was like, and this guy was like, what are you talking about, man? After going back and forth forever, he was like, how? Okay, he just got tired of the whole conversation.
he just gave me a glass of milk. and then I saw the milk, and that's when it's like, okay.
You did the math.
Now I understand what happened.
I really had no idea anything was like in Taiwan. I just knew it was an island off the coast of mainland China, but it seemed like a great adventure to me.
When you first time came to Taiwan, what was your first impression about this country?
I remember very distinctly, I was probably in a taxi coming from the airport, and I was in the city, and I saw what I thought were a lot of soldiers, and I thought, oh my goodness, the soldiers here are so young. But then I realized that they were high school students, and that was their uniform. When I first arrived, my Chinese was really not very good, but I was brave, and I remember I was by myself in Taipei, and I went to a coffee shop. It was very crowded. I needed to call the waitress over, and I had to think, yeah, I've studied this before. I know how to say waitress. My textbooks were very old. They were written in the 1920s. So when I went to call the waitress, I raised my hand and I said, "Huoji, Huoji." So the coffee shop, everyone stopped talking, and they turned their head and they looked at me, and I felt really small.
And then I come to Taiwan, and boom, it's alive, you know?
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
It's like, you know, full power running.
Oh
here,
yeah,
you know?
definitely.
Yeah, with all these pole dancers and gods all together, it's real.
There's a lot to see.
Yeah.
There's a lot to
think
see,
so.
definitely. So many interesting festivals and ceremonies and practices, rituals, all that. Yeah, it's very much alive.
I've seen you've been to this Mazu pilgrimage, right?
Yes, yeah. So there are two big pilgrimages in Taiwan. And the one I went to is called the Baisatun Mazu Raojing. And it's a bit different than the Dajia Mazu Raojing, which goes to Xingang. The Baisatun goes from Miaoli to Beigang.
Okay.
And back.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that they change the route as they go. So there's no set route. At intersections, they let the god choose.
All right.
So they'll just sit there and you don't know which direction they're gonna go, and then it just takes off.
But do they wait for the green light?
Yes, they do. They do wait for the green light. They do.
Just check.
We did that for a TV show called Bao Dao Sen Hen Da. We did that this year, and we walked the portion from Beigang to Miaoli, the return portion.
Okay.
And what was special this year is that it was so short. We had
short.
36 hours.
Oh, they're all in time-wise.
In time, yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, because every year you have a different set amount of time as well on how long it needs to return. Sometimes the pilgrimage can last 12 days, sometimes it can last 8 days. It's just different.
It's also like determined by that fortune teller.
It's often determined by those kinds of ritual practices.
All right, so they come up with the number. Okay, today we have to make it in 12 hours. End of the story, guys. You know, take some Red Bull and don't stop. You know.
Yeah, so we had 36 to go about 200 kilometers.
That's not too much break on. So when you have this trip like last time, you say 36 hours, 200 kilometers. So you don't stop, so you have to eat on the way, right?
Well, so technically, Mazu will take little breaks. Now, because we had such a short time, like the longest break she took was only 3 hours. So in that time, people can sleep a little bit, eat. But she does kind of like give her followers a chance to rest at certain points. But as you're walking on the trail, or walking along, there are people everywhere handing out drinks, coffees, food of all kinds, vegetarian
it's like
and
a
non.
moving night market.
Pretty much, except you're walking by the night market and they're just getting in front of you.
So you move through them.
Yeah, it's awesome, and they're handing it out. I think the most memorable was probably this sausage truck.
Sausage truck.
Yeah, it was a truck driving with all the people, and they had like 5 guys on the back with these big barbecues, and they were handing out sausages. That was pretty amazing.
And so one night I just felt like going out for a walk. So I got my knife and my dogs and a spear and went out for a walk. And there's a road up there. And it was Sunday night, and I could hear motorcycles coming down. You know, obviously people who didn't know the road. And I figured it was tourists. And so I figured, you know, even in the daytime, if I don't want you to see me in the mountains, you're not going to see me. And I figured at night, all I have to do is just stand. You know, I tell my dogs to sit.
Yeah.
And just stand there with my spear and my knife, and nobody will see me. And you know, it was great. The thing I neglected, so there I'm, you know, I'm just standing there, you know, totally dead, just standing there. What I forgot was that the road goes this way.
Yeah, yeah.
And so these guys coming out of the mountains,
Yeah.
you know, in this place, miles from any building,
Yeah.
you see this guy with a headhunting knife standing there. And it was really funny because every motorcycle came really slowed down and went speeding down. About 6 of them were going, and I was thinking when they got back to, you know, 看到了吗？你看到了吗？你有看到吗？
It's like a scene from the horror movie.
In Thailand, one of the big things they do there is, especially with foreigners, that when you get a taxi, they try to overcharge you the money. So the first time I arrived in Taiwan, the taxi driver was taking us to our new apartment where we were staying, and I fully expected him because he was going everywhere. I was convinced he was going in the wrong direction, and I thought, he's going to charge me a lot of money for this.
Yeah.
Well, I looked at the meter and I gave him the money and he gave me money back and said, sorry, I took you the wrong way. And I thought, oh, I've arrived in a safe, nice, honest country.
Thanks for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and see you next time. Bye bye.